A crowded street. A desperate mother. A baby's faint cry drowned out by the chaos of Lagos traffic. Then, a billionaire's black SUV slows to a stop. And in that moment, two worlds collide. But what begins as suspicion soon unravels into something far more shocking, a truth that could break hearts or change lives forever. When mercy and power meet head-on, the outcome is never simple. What will this encounter reveal? Welcome to the Judge Stories, where powerful tales meet unforgettable twists. Please subscribe to help us grow, and drop a comment to tell us which country you're watching from. We'd love to hear from you. Afternoon heat pressed down on Lagos like a heavy palm, flattening the voices of hawkers and turning the air into a shimmer above the asphalt. Peace Ada shifted her baby higher on her hip, the faded cloth sling biting into her shoulder. Little John Chuka's head lay tucked beneath her chin, breath warm and fast, the lightest whimper escaping each time a Danfo bus screeched past. She cupped his ear with her palm to soften the noise and whispered the lullaby her mother had used for storms. Nwata ku nwata, miri gaaba. Sleep, my child, till morning comes. Traffic had locked Ajagunle in a grid of idling engines, Okadas threaded gaps with impatient beeps. Somewhere close, a generator rattled. Somewhere closer, hot oil hissed as a suya man turned meat over the fire. The smell drifted. Pepper, smoke, char, twisting the hunger in Peace's stomach until it felt like a hand wringing a cloth dry. She swallowed and shifted again, rocking John. Eat first, my baby. I can wait, she breathed, more prayer than promise. She chose her place carefully each day, not the Agbero corner where fights broke out, not the median where kids chased bumpers with paper cups, but a sliver of shade beside a cracked wall whose posters curled at the edges. From here, drivers sometimes saw her without feeling chased. She never knocked on windows or ran alongside cars. She simply stood and rocked, a rhythm as slow as breath, eyes lowered, voice small. A woman in starched Ankara passed with a basket of bananas on her head. She glanced at Peace, then at the baby, then away. Two schoolboys with untucked shirts argued about football, laughing too loudly, the kind of laughter you earn when you know there's food at home. A street preacher lifted his voice at the junction, promising miracles in a cracked microphone. "Mercy!" he shouted, and the speaker squealed. A taxi horn answered like an amen. The sun slid a little, trading white glare for a gold that softened the city's edges. John stirred, the whimper sharpening. Peace shifted him, kissed his hair. The cloth smelled faintly of smoke and soap, the last bar she had stretched thin as paper. Another hour, she told herself, and maybe she'd have enough to buy pap from Mama Ifeoma's stall. She pictured the plastic cup steaming in her hands, the way John's mouth would latch and quiet, the small pause before his lashes lowered. The picture kept her standing. A car window clicked down near her elbow. A man's hand extended a few crumpled Naira notes. "For the baby," he said, eyes already forward. She nodded thanks she could not quite say, and the glass rose like a curtain ending a scene. She tucked the money into the seam of the sling, the safest pocket she had, and kept rocking. Do not count yet. Do not hope yet. Hope made the fall hurt more when it came. Across the road, a Danfo conductor hung from the door frame, calling, "CMS! CMS! One chance!" He winked at Peace as if sharing a secret joke about the city that refused to slow down. A gust of grit lifted and settled on her bare feet. She shifted again, easing a pebble from under her heel without breaking the motion of her arms. Nwata ku nwata. The lullaby came out thinner now, like a thread pulled through cloth one time too many. Then she felt it, the hush that happens when power meets noise. Engines still hummed, hawkers still called, yet something quiet moved into the space beside her. A sleek black SUV rolled to a stop at the curb, paint shining even under dust. The air around it seemed cooler, the kind of cool that lives inside offices where air conditioners are kept too low. Tinted glass reflected the crowded street back at itself. Buses, shirts, smoke, and, small within the mirror, a woman in shade with a baby in her arms. The driver's door did not open. The engine kept a steady purr, confident, like a cat deciding whether to leave a sunny window. Peace did not step closer. She did not raise a hand. She held John and rocked, and looked at the pavement where sunlight cut a narrow stripe between her toes. Behind the glass, someone was watching. She could feel it the way you feel rain before the first drop. A pause, a weighing. The SUV idled another breath, then edged forward the length of a car and stopped again, directly in front of her patch of shade. Peace lowered her eyes and whispered into John's hair, "Eat first, my baby. I can wait." Inside the SUV, Chief Emmanuel Olumide leaned closer to the glass. Chief Emmanuel Olumide had sat through board meetings longer than Lagos traffic jams, yet nothing had felt this slow. The convoy should have cleared Ahagunle by now, but the road ahead looked like a parking lot of buses and danfos stacked in every direction. The air outside his SUV shimmered with heat, tinted glass keeping it out but not muffling the world completely. Hawkers' voices carried through in snatches. "Pure water, gala, recharge card." Each call rose and fell like a market chant. He leaned back in the leather seat, tugging at his cuff. Numbers usually steadied him: quarterly projections, oil contracts, deals signed in quiet rooms. But today his mind wandered to the figure he had glimpsed in the mirror of his glass. The young woman, barefoot, cloth sling biting into her shoulder, rocking a baby as if the entire street had narrowed down to the rhythm of her arms. Another scam, he had told himself at first. He'd read the reports, seen the videos, women renting babies to trick sympathy out of drivers. His security detail confirmed it often enough. But even as he muttered the words, something in him resisted. Her silence. She had not run forward, not tapped on windows, not stretched a hand into traffic. She simply stood, shielding her child from the dust with a palm thin as paper. He shifted, watching her through the shaded glass. The baby whimpered. She bent her head and whispered. He could not hear, but he read the line on her lips. "Eat first, my baby. I can wait." The phrase struck him like a stone skipping back from memory. His chest tightened. He saw his mother, Amara Olumide, on the side of a road in Agege 35 years ago, a tray of akara balanced on her head. Her wrapper faded, her sandals cracked, yet her voice steady as she broke one cake into 3 pieces for him and his brothers. She had pressed the smallest portion into her own mouth last, smiling even as hunger hollowed her cheeks. Emmanuel exhaled and pinched the bridge of his nose. He had built empires from that hunger, steel, oil, properties stretching across Victoria Island. He had learned to distrust tears, to assume manipulation until proven otherwise. The boardroom sharpened those instincts like knives. Never let sentiment cloud judgment. Mercy, he had often said, was bad for business. And yet here Mercy was, outside his window, rocking a baby in a sling. "Sir?" His driver's voice broke the thought. "Should I clear away, or we wait?" "Wait," Emmanuel said curtly, eyes still on the woman. The driver adjusted the rearview mirror and followed his gaze. "This one? Many of them fake, sir. Sometimes even hire children." "I know," Emmanuel murmured. But he didn't look away. For a long minute, Lagos moved in fragments around him. A danfo conductor shouted for passengers. 2 schoolboys chased each other between bumpers. A hawker slapped biscuits against the SUV's window, grinning wide. Through it all, the woman remained, rocking her child, lowering her head, whispering words only the boy would ever hear. Emmanuel shifted again, uncomfortable in a way money could not ease. He reached for the switch to lower the window, then stopped. What if she was genuine? What if she wasn't? He could almost hear the boardroom laughter if they knew their chairman had been fooled by a street trick. Yet he could also hear another sound, his mother's voice, soft as cloth, saying, "Eat first, my sons. I can wait." The SUV inched forward as traffic loosened. The woman grew smaller in his view, swallowed by the crowd of hawkers pressing in again. Emmanuel sat back, jaw tight. He had left her behind, but he had not escaped her. That night, beneath the glow of recessed lights and the hum of his air conditioning, he still saw her barefoot whispering into her child's hair. He closed his eyes, but the memory stayed, heavy and insistent, refusing to leave him in peace. And for the first time in years, Chief Emmanuel Olumide did not feel like a man in control. Chief Emmanuel Olumide had closed billion naira deals without blinking, but the memory of that roadside woman would not leave him. Even in his office on Victoria Island, surrounded by glass walls and signed portraits with governors, her image clung to him like dust after rain. He tried to bury himself in numbers, contracts, projections, a merger proposal that should have consumed his full attention. Yet between each line of figures he saw the same picture. A young mother lowering her head whispering, "Eat first, my baby, I can wait." On the second night of restlessness, he pushed back from his desk and called his driver. "Tomorrow," he said, voice low, "you will go back to Ajagunle. Look for her?" The driver hesitated. "Sir, these beggars, most of them, eh?" "Don't argue," Emmanuel cut in. "You'll give her money. I want to see what she does with it. Report to me." The test began the next afternoon. The driver, dressed in plain shirt and trousers, approached Peace with a folded note. Emmanuel, sitting in the back of another car parked discreetly across the road, watched through tinted glass. Peace accepted the note with both hands, bowed her head, and almost ran to the nearest stall. She bought a small plastic cup of pap and a tiny portion of beans cake. She fed John first, coaxing him gently, her eyes soft as the boy quieted. Only when he drifted into drowsy sucking did she pinch a piece of akara for herself. Emmanuel's chest tightened. One test could be coincidence. He ordered another. The following day, the driver tried again, this time pressing more money into her palm. Emmanuel leaned forward in his seat, gaze locked. Peace looked at the note, looked at her baby, then hurried toward a food stand. She bought bread, tore it carefully, fed John piece after piece dipped in warm tea. Only when his small belly rounded and he sighed into her shoulder did she sip what remained. Emmanuel pressed his fingers together, restless. She isn't eating first. She is pretending. She's real. Still, part of him clung to doubt. Years of boardroom trickery had carved suspicion deep into his bones. So he sent his driver one last time. On the third day, rain drummed hard on Lagos roofs. The gutters foamed, Danfos splashed water onto the sidewalks. Peace sat hunched under a leaking shed, cloth wrapped over her baby, shielding him from the spray. When the driver offered her money, she hesitated, almost refusing. Then she looked at John, his lips trembling from cold. She accepted at last, rushed to buy hot pap, and fed him in slow spoonfuls, blowing on each to cool it. Emmanuel's hand tightened on the armrest as he watched. Rain streaked his window, distorting the image, but not enough to hide the truth. She ate nothing that day, saving every drop for the child. The test was over. That evening, he sat alone in his study. The walls glowed with framed awards and oil contracts, but his eyes drifted to a single photograph on the shelf. His mother, Amara, in a faded wrapper, holding him as a boy outside their agege room. He remembered the hunger, the nights she went without food, the quiet dignity that never begged but always endured. "Mercy is weakness," the boardroom voice inside him whispered. But another voice, older and softer, pushed back. "If someone had not shown us mercy, would we be here at all?" Emmanuel leaned back, exhaling through his teeth. The test had not satisfied him. It had unsettled him more. 3 days of watching had proven what his heart already knew. The woman was no scammer. She was a mother on the edge of survival. And tomorrow, he would meet her himself. The fourth day dawned with a sky the color of ash, clouds sagging low over Lagos. By late afternoon, traffic had thickened into its usual gridlock. Hawkers darted between bumpers, balancing trays of plantain chips, ground nuts, or phone chargers, their voices hoarse from the endless chorus. "Gala, pure water, recharge card." Chief Emmanuel Olumide sat in the back of his SUV, silent. He had spent 3 nights turning in his bed, chasing sleep that refused to come. Every time he closed his eyes, he saw the young woman shielding her baby from dust, whispering words he could not forget. "Eat first, my baby. I can wait." The tests were over. 3 days of watching had stripped away his excuses. Now there was nothing left but the decision: face her, or drive away forever. "Sir," his head of security asked, peering from the front seat. "We've spotted her again. Should we keep moving?" Emmanuel's gaze lingered through the tinted glass. There she was, the same patch of cracked wall, the same faded sling holding the same frail baby. Her eyes lowered, her arms moving with that steady rhythm. She was thinner than he remembered, but her dignity remained. "I'll speak to her," Emmanuel said. The security guard turned in his seat, alarmed. "Sir, with respect, this is Ajegunle. Not safe. Too many eyes. You can't just—" "If my mother had been left on the roadside," Emmanuel cut in, voice hard, "none of you would work for me today." Silence fell. The guard swallowed and gave a quick nod. The driver eased the SUV to the curb. Emmanuel stepped out, the humid air striking him like a wall. Conversations faltered. Hawkers slowed, curious to see the wealthy man in fine clothes standing on their street. His polished shoes touched down on gritty pavement, dust clinging to the hem of his tailored trousers. "Peace?" Ada startled when she realized he was walking toward her. Instinctively, she pulled John tighter to her chest, eyes darting for escape. He stopped a few feet away. "Why are you here?" His voice was sharper than he intended. "Where is your husband?" Peace blinked rapidly, struggling to find words. Finally, her voice broke out, low but steady. "He's gone, sir. Fever took him last year. Since then, it's just me and my baby." She pressed her cheek against John's head. "I don't want money for myself, and I just need him to eat." John whimpered then, as if underscoring her plea. Peace rocked him harder, her face tight with shame. Tears slipped free not for herself, but for the small boy wriggling against her shoulder. Emmanuel stood frozen. He had expected excuses, perhaps even defiance. Instead, she gave him truth, unpolished and raw. He saw no manipulation in her eyes, only the tired desperation of a woman who had carried more than her share of weight. His throat tightened. In her, he saw Amara, his late mother standing barefoot in a gege, refusing to eat until her children were full. Behind him, one of his guards shifted impatiently. "Sir, let's go. We've stayed too long." But Emmanuel did not move. For the first time in decades, he ignored the rhythm of caution and calculation. He reached into his pocket, pulled out a folded handkerchief, and extended it. Peace hesitated, confused. "Sir." "Wipe your tears," he said softly. Her hand trembled as she accepted it. The cloth was clean, crisp, smelling faintly of cologne, nothing like the frayed rags she used each day. She pressed it to her face, whispering, "Thank you." Emmanuel's gaze fell once more to the child. John had quieted, big eyes blinking up at him. Something inside Emmanuel shifted, deeper than pity, heavier than charity. This was no scam. This was a miracle waiting for someone to notice. "Come with me," he said at last. Peace stiffened. "Sir, two can't. I don't want to lose my spot here. People help sometimes." "You won't beg again," Emmanuel said firmly. "Not while I'm alive." The words carried finality. Behind them, traffic honked and hawkers shouted, but around them a hush seemed to fall. Peace looked down at John, then back at the stranger who spoke like thunder but carried eyes full of memory. Slowly, she nodded. And just like that, her life began to turn. The SUV's door thudded shut, sealing Peace and John inside a hush of cool air. The city's grit fell away as the convoy eased from Ajagunle's tangle into wider roads. Peace kept one palm on John's back, feeling the quick wing beat of his breath slow under the steady hum of the engine. She didn't speak. She didn't trust her voice not to break. Across from her, Chief Emmanuel Olumide watched without crowding. He had learned in boardrooms that silence could be the kindest thing. It gave truth somewhere to sit. When John gave a thin cry, he pressed the intercom. "Kitchen," he said. "Have hot pap ready. And milk." A pause. Warm towels. Security gates parted at the estate, black irons scrolling back like theater curtains. The driveway curved through clipped hedges to a house that caught light on every edge. Cream walls, tall glass, a brass knocker that didn't need to be knocked. Inside, the air was cool and faintly citrus. Marble held the day's heat at its edges. Dark wood glowed, and framed photographs marched across a wall. Contracts, handshakes, a younger Emmanuel beside his mother Amara, laughing in unguarded light. Peace hesitated on the threshold, the sling's knot biting her shoulder. She hovered as if a wrong step might wake her from a good dream. A housekeeper in a neat head wrap appeared with a basket of folded towels. The chef followed, carrying a steaming bowl. Emmanuel nodded them aside, not unkindly. "Here," he said to Peace, guiding her toward a small sitting room off the grand foyer. Soft chairs, low lamp, quiet. "Feed him first." She sat gingerly, as if cushion might refuse her, then loosened the sling. John's face crumpled, then opened at the first spoon. Steam fogged the air between them. He took the pap in small, greedy mouthfuls, the frantic suck easing, eyelids growing heavier until his fist unclenched against Peace's blouse. She blew on each spoonful as if cooling fire into something gentle. Only when he sighed into drowsy fullness did she touch the rim of the bowl to her own lips. Emmanuel looked away, because some reverence is private. He stared at the portrait of Amara on the far wall and felt absurdly like a boy who'd been caught stealing sweetness. When he turned back, Peace had finished the last of the pap and folded the towel around John like a soft new skin. "Rest a moment," he said, "then we'll talk." They spoke in the smaller study, not the long office with the leather chairs and hard light. Emmanuel sat without his usual desk between them. "What work did you do before?" he asked. "Cleaning," Peace said, eyes lowered. "Offices at night, some homes. I can read. I write small. I keep time well." She lifted her gaze a little. "I won't shame you." He measured her words the way he measured a balance sheet, not for polish, but for balance. "You kept time even when there was no roof," he said evenly. "That is more than most men do with keys to an office." She swallowed. "If you want me to wash, I will wash. If you want—" "I want you to learn," Emmanuel said. "You will start as an assistant trainee. Schedules, calls, notes. You'll sit by someone who will teach you the rest." He let the next words come slowly so their weight could land. "And you will not go back to that roadside?" Peace's lips parted, then pressed firm. "Sir, I have no place—" "You do," he answered, reaching for the intercom again. "Peter, get the mainland keys. The furnished 2-bedroom, stock the kitchen, fresh linens. And talk to HR, temporary papers for a trainee placement." He released the button and faced Peace. "There's a good creche 3 streets from that apartment. John will be enrolled tomorrow." She covered her mouth with her hand. A sound escaped, half laugh, half sob. "I don't know how to say thank you," she whispered. "You already did," Emmanuel said. "Out there? Every time you fed your child first." Silence expanded between them, warm instead of heavy. Somewhere in the house, a clock took up a slow, civilized tick. John slept on her shoulder, milk-sweet and slack with the kind of peace that had no place by the roadside. A soft knock. The driver stood with a small envelope and a key fob. Emmanuel took the fob, turned it once in his palm, then placed it in Peace's open hand. "This isn't charity," he said. "It's a beginning. You'll work hard. I will demand much, but this door—" He nodded toward the foyer, toward the world beyond it. "This door stays open if you walk through it with dignity." Peace closed her fingers around the keys as if they were fragile. "I will not waste it," she said, voice steady now. He believed her. Not because of her words, but because he had already watched her choose hunger for herself and fullness for her son. Some truths were audited in private. As she rose to go, driver waiting to show her the apartment, a small hamper already prepared. Peace paused at the study doorway. "Sir?" "Yes?" She looked at the portrait of Amara, radiant in a captured laugh. "She raised a good man." Emmanuel felt the compliment land in the only ledger that mattered. "She taught me mercy," he said. "I am only paying her forward." Outside, the evening settled over the estate in a blue hush. A different night waited in a different room across the city. Clean sheets, a fan that hummed, a kitchen that held more than hope. And for the first time in a long time, a door did not close behind Peace Ada. It opened. The hum of a ceiling fan was the first sound Peace heard when she woke. For a moment she lay still, listening. No danfo horns, no shouts of hawkers, no generator rattling through thin walls, just the steady whir of clean blades turning above her. She blinked against the soft cream of painted walls and the gentle slant of morning light across the floor. John stirred beside her on the bed, his tiny arms splayed wide on the sheet. The sheet itself was white, unstained, thick enough to fold twice and still feel soft. He shifted, rolled toward her, and sighed in his sleep, his belly rising and falling like the sea. Peace sat up slowly, every nerve awake with disbelief. The mattress pressed back against her, not a thin mat biting into her hip bones, but real cushioning, almost too generous. She let her palm trail across the fabric, half afraid her touch might break the spell. The apartment smelled faintly of polish and lavender, scents she did not know could belong to walls. A small kitchen waited beyond the open door, its shelves already stocked, rice in clear jars, tins of milk, a loaf of bread wrapped in cellophane, eggs stacked neatly in their crate. She pressed a hand to her chest. Thank you, God. A knock sounded, gentle. The driver, Peter, stood at the door holding a folder. Madam, good morning. Just some papers for your creche registration. And this. He handed her a small card for groceries. The chief asked me to tell you not to worry about food for now. Her eyes stung as she took it. Please, thank him for me. You can tell him yourself, Peter said, smiling. You'll see him at the office soon. When he left, Peace set the folder down and turned back to John. He had woken, eyes wide, blinking at the ceiling fan as if it were a new kind of bird. She lifted him, kissed his forehead, and carried him into the kitchen. She cracked 2 eggs into a pan, the hiss of oil startling in its richness. Soon the smell of cooking filled the air. John clapped his hands, bouncing in her arms. They ate together. He with soft pieces of bread, she with egg and tea. Every bite tasted like more than food. It tasted like tomorrow. By late morning, she stood at the wardrobe where clothes hung already pressed. A plain blouse, a neat skirt, more than she had owned in years. She changed, tied her hair back, and looked in the mirror. The woman staring back looked like someone who belonged to the day, not just the night. That afternoon she walked outside. The estate's street was quiet, lined with trimmed hibiscus, neighbors moving without hurry. A woman watering flowers paused to wave. Peace raised her hand, hesitant, then smiled. She had been the figure bent on the roadside for so long that lifting her chin felt strange, almost defiant. Word traveled quickly. Some of those who had passed her begging on the expressway now whispered when they saw her at the market, John strapped to her back, groceries in hand. Isn't that the woman from Ajagunle? One murmured. The one with the baby? Another replied, She's different now. God must have remembered her. Peace did not answer. She only smiled, because the truth was simpler and heavier. God had remembered her, yes, but so had a man named Emmanuel, who still carried his mother's voice in his chest. That evening, when she returned to the apartment, John full and laughing, she laid him down on the bed and knelt beside him. We must pray, she whispered. His eyes followed her, uncomprehending but calm. She clasped his tiny hand in hers. Thank you, Lord, for this roof, this food, this peace. Thank you even for the days we had nothing, because they taught us to trust you. And thank you for today, when you gave us more than we dreamed. Her voice cracked, but it was not from hunger. It was from fullness she had not known how to hold. As night gathered, she lay beside her son. Outside, the city moved as always, engines and voices never resting. But within those walls, mother and child slept without fear. The beginning of a new life had come, quietly, almost like a whisper, but it was real. And Peace knew she would never be the same again. Weeks found their rhythm before Peace noticed. Morning began with the fan's soft whir and John's bright chatter. By 8 o'clock, she walked him to the creche, his fingers drumming a song on his shoulder. By 9, she was at the office on Victoria Island with a slim notebook and a sharpened pencil, seated beside a senior aide who taught her the bones of an assistant's day. Calendars, calls, minutes, the quiet art of keeping chaos tidy. She wrote clearly, letters marching straight even when her heart thumped. Repeat back the meeting time, the aide would say. Peace repeated. Flag conflicts. She flagged. She learned names, extensions, the way executives tried to make their emergencies everyone's. She learned to smile without promising what couldn't be done. One afternoon, a visiting partner arrived 2 hours early, demanding a room, coffee, and the chairman. Phones began to ring like alarms. The senior aide looked at Peace. Breathe, she whispered. Peace checked the board, saw a gap, called facilities, found an open conference room, sent a message to security, and walked the visitor there herself. She placed a carafe on the table and took notes as he spoke to himself, listing points he wanted the chairman to hear. When he paused, she said softly, I'll flag these for the 3 p.m. You'll have 12 minutes. Let's make them count. He blinked, then smiled, disarmed by calm. Across the hall, Chief Emmanuel Olumide passed the glass wall, watching without stepping in. He had not hired Peace for gratitude. He had hired her because she had already proven the one skill an assistant needs most, to keep someone else's need above her own. Still, what he saw now filled him with a quieter pride than any ribbon-cutting had. Competence settling where fear had lived. That evening, he lingered in his study longer than usual. The city's lights glittered against the window, boats pricking dark water with small, moving stars. On the shelf, his mother's photograph caught the lamplight. Amara's laugh was frozen mid-bloom, head tilted back, eyes bright with a joy that had never needed marble to exist. He called Peter. How is she managing? Steady, sir, Peter said. Creche says the boy is eating well. He doesn't cry at drop-off anymore. The teachers taught him to clap to the alphabet. He claps too fast, but he claps. Emmanuel smiled into the receiver. Good. He drove to the mainland apartment without the convoy, just one car and the steady comfort of doing a thing himself. The corridor smelled faintly of stew and detergent. At her door, he paused when he heard voices, one low and certain, one small and eager. Peace knelt on the rug with John beside her, a tiny hand tucked in hers. The evening light spilled across the floor like a soft blessing. Thank you, Lord, she said, for this roof, for food, for work. Thank you for the days we had nothing, because they taught us to trust you. And for today, because it teaches us to hope. John repeated the endings the way small children do, grabbing at the last word, roof, food, hope, as if they were treasures he could keep in his pocket. Emmanuel knocked gently. Peace rose, startled, then smiled when she saw him. Sir, please come in. He held up a small paper bag. For John, he said. Inside was a board book with thick pages, bright pictures of animals, letters large enough for clapping fingers. John reached for it with both hands and smacked the A with a palm, delighted by the hollow sound. Peace laughed, a clear, unguarded thing that filled the room better than any chandelier. You came at the end of our prayer, she said. We were just saying thank you. I heard, he replied. He looked toward the window, where the city hummed beyond hibiscus hedges. If my mother were here, she would have joined you. Then join us, Peace said simply. There's room. They stood a moment in quiet, 3 lives braided by a decision made at a curb. Emmanuel did not speak of policies or foundations or new programs some PR team would later suggest. Mercy needed no cameras. He only placed his hand briefly on John's small back and felt, with an old ache that no longer hurt, his mother's hand on his own boyhood shoulder. When he left, night had settled fully. In the car, he thought of the sentence he had carried like a shield for years, mercy is bad for business, and felt it loosen, fall, and be replaced by something truer. Mercy is the business worth doing. Upstairs, Peace laid John on the bed and tucked the sheet under his feet. She pressed her palm to his chest and felt a steady, grateful drum. Tomorrow would bring emails, calendars, traffic, all the ordinary frictions of a city that never slows. But doors once closed were open now, and open doors change the way a person walks. She knelt again, not from fear, but from fullness. Thank you, she whispered, and the room held the words as if it had been built for them. Outside, Lagos roared and glittered. Inside, legacy began where it always does, in a small room with gratitude.